If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, we have Tyler Vankill on the show. You may have known him under a different name. We're going to talk about that in a second, but he is set to make his professional MMA debut on February 8th at Fight League Atlantic 1 in Truro, Nova Scotia. It's been a while since I've been up to Nova Scotia, but he's going to take on Rafael Palomeque at the event. Tyler, how are you, man?
Doing well, man. Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So we have to talk about this name thing because even your manager, when he reached out to me, said, "You want to interview Tyler Mead?" I said, "Sure, no problem." And, all the research I did was Tyler Mead. And then you were telling me off air that your name is legally changed to Tyler Vankill. Tell us about how this name change happened. What inspired it?
Well, so not to be a downer to start the story, but so my dad kind of took off on us when we were young. I was about 15, so kind of going through life, I don't want to carry his name because it's whatever. And then my mom changed her name back to her maiden name, so there was really no ties for me to the last name that I had. And then when I met my wife, she was kind of a black sheep. I'm kind of a black sheep of the family, kind of thing. So we both kind of were just like in no man's land where our names were concerned, and it's an important thing to us. So she's Dutch and I'm Irish. The beginning of some Dutch names, or a lot of Dutch names, begins with Van, and the beginning of some Irish names begins with Kill, like Kilkenny, Killarney. So ladies being first, we decided to go with create our own Dutch-Irish name, Vankill, and it's just kind of a way to start our own legacy and create our own stride, kind of thing.
So is the last name the only name you've changed, or is there more to this name change?
So I changed my middle name as well. So I was named after my grandfather, my dad's dad. And I met him once when I was like 18 years old, never really had much to do with my life and everything. So I just decided to kind of like change everything, start new. So I kept the initial, and I was just going to eliminate it altogether, but I said, the heck with it. And I actually changed my middle name to Pizza. So yeah. I looked at it from the perspective of pizza's always been there for me, has never let me down.
That is so true. I think a lot of people might change their middle names to Pizza at this point. That is crazy. Plus with the new last name, it's a pretty good last name for a fighter, Tyler Vankill. Like I turned to like Vince McMahon saying Vankill.
Right. And the funny thing is, I didn't even train whenever we came up with the name. It was like years prior that we came up with that Vankill, and then I got into fighting, and it was just an even better decision, kind of thing.
Well, it's good to have you here. Thank you for sharing that. It's hilarious. But you got a big fight coming up in a little over 2 weeks' time. First professional fight. How has everything been going as you get ready for this one?
It's been going real good. I just training real hard 2-3 times a day. Just that's it. Just hard work, and the results will always show.
I was doing my research as I typically do, and very strong amateur credentials from what I saw. 4 wins, 4 submissions. I mean, sometimes not all of the fights are in there, but at least from what I saw, that's what I saw. But I'm curious how this all got started for you, this wild world of MMA, because this sport is clearly not for everybody, and I found that each person's path to the sport is different than everybody else's. So what was your path?
Well, my mom's a black belt in judo, so I grew up in kind of a martial arts household. What happens a lot of the time, though, with kids that grow up in a structured house like that is they rebel against it. So I did judo my life when I was a kid, and then kind of grew away from it, got into some substance abuse problems and stuff when I was a teenager, and then just kind of didn't know what I was doing. And then I met my wife, and shortly after we met, when I was 19, she was diagnosed with cancer, and I didn't really have a chance to really do much in my early 20s because I was supporting my wife and 2 stepdaughters and just working, trying to just make sure the house stayed up while she was sick. And then she got over that, and luckily we were able to really just move forward and we got a chance to move to the States from Edmonton, Alberta, and we just jumped all over it. And whenever I started working down there, I met a guy whose wife trained, and I started going to some classes, and I was just fully head over heels in love with the sport of jiu-jitsu. And then obviously MMA just came as a natural part of everything, the progression of it, you know. And then I did started training actually when I was 26, and then that was in Arizona. I started training at Arizona Combat Sports. Had a couple of like smoker fights or like kind of like unsanctioned fights, kind of deal in Arizona, but then like everything kind of like really got on track when I got to California, and I started training at the arena, and it became like a passion, kind of like, this is what I'm going to do kind of thing.
You have had a lot thrown at you in your life. So
yeah,
is it fair to say that training not only just takes your mind off a lot of that stuff, but it's almost easier in a way from a mental perspective? Because you've been through a lot. I mean, we've only been talking for 4 or 5 minutes, and you've thrown a lot at me here that a lot of people don't necessarily go through.
Yeah, and I mean, like the old adage says, right? Like, we're only given the struggles that we're able to handle, kind of thing. And if you look at it from a perspective of whenever something hits you, like, oh, I can't, then you're not going to be able to, you know. You've just got to be able to run at everything full on, and just, things are what they are, and they won't change, in a sense. So you have to embrace them in the best way that you can, or you yourself will crumble. And it's just the facts of life. If you don't meet things head on and deal with them, it's going to be hard.
Was a lot of that stuff the reason why the activity wasn't, you know, as much as probably as you have hoped for? A lot of the stuff that you were dealing with, keeping the household in check and things like that, because, you know, going through and looking, 2018 was your most active year. You had a couple of fights and a couple of finishes, but it was like one fight in 15, one fight in 16 or 17. I can't remember off the top of my head, but, you know, and then you haven't fought since 2018. So is it more sort of that led to the inactivity?
No. That was all the reason why. So that's the reason why I wasn't able to actually do any training at all in my early 20s, because since I've started fighting, I've just, I'm not really the one to kind of like talk a whole lot of crap, but like, there's not a lot of like real fighters in this shit. You know, like, a lot of people want everything but the actual fight. They want the Instagram pictures, they want this, they want that, but they don't want the actual fight. You know, like, I had a couple, so after 2015, I fought, and then I kind of had a couple of knee injuries, so I couldn't really like get right back into the MMA and take a lot of damage on my knees and stuff, because I had to like recoup that and stuff. But once I got that taken care of, I've been trying to fight. You know, it's just, in 2018, I won the middleweight title for Epic Fighting in San Diego, and then between that fight in February and the fight where I fought for the 170 title and the California state title in August, I had 3 fights and 5 opponents pull out.
Jeez.
So yeah, it's one of those things where, I mean, I was 3-0 at one point, and I was supposed to fight another guy that was 4-0 for an amateur promotions title in like the Inland Empire in California, and he wouldn't fight me. He said no. His coaches wanted to still have him fight on the same card, just against a different opponent, not me for the title. So there's nothing I can do about that stuff, right? Like, I'm always willing to fight. I'm always training, and I'm always in the gym, and I'm always, you know, all last year I was accepting fights.
And now
I was trying to find a fight all last year. I missed out on all of 2019 because, for whatever reason, it will be said, oh, I didn't know, or this or that. But I mean, I'm at the best gym in Canada, Toshido MMA, with one of the best coaches to kind of ever do it in Canada, Dave Lee. So you think he knows promotions. You think he's in these guys' ears. He's not talking to them about me. Trying to make my pro debut. I'm a, you know, California state champion coming up here. I've messaged certain promotions here and said, hey, this is what's up. I'm here. I'm looking for a fight at this weight, blah, blah, blah. I can see that they saw the message, but I don't got no fights in that promotion. So, you know what I mean?
Man, that's got to be frustrating,
I can do about that, right? So FLA, they hit me up. They told me that this was coming. I was still trying to find fights in between and stuff like that, but it is what it is, right? There's nothing you can do about certain things. So I don't hold that like in my back pocket being mad about it. There's nothing you can do. So change the things you can, and then things that you can't change, don't think about them as much, because it'll just drive you crazy.
Well, you found an opponent. You found a promotion, FLA. You're going to fight Rafael
Yep.
Palomeque, 2-1 as a pro. He's coming off a submission win back in November. I'm sure it didn't even matter who you were fighting at this point, but did you know much about him when the fight was offered to you?
No, doesn't matter to me. I mean, I've trained and fought with, sparred with, rolled with the best in the world, from all over, and I know what my skill set is, and I'm just excited for somebody that like is man enough to actually sign the contract, show up, and just fight me. Because I mean, like, think about it, right? Like, if I'm willing to lose, if I'm willing to go out there and win, if I'm willing to go out there and put it all on the line, like, just that's what we're for. That's what we do it for, right? Like, a lot of guys want to just only accept fights against guys that they know they may have a chance at winning against, right? But it isn't the excitement supposed to be about going out and just knowing that it's your skill set, not knowing what's, you know what I mean? That's the drive. You just get to go out and fight someone.
I agree. I remember, and this interview sticks out to me very much so, and I bring it up a lot. I talked to Kama Worthy right before his UFC debut when he went in there and upset Devontae Smith, and then I talked to him after the fight because he's been up and down throughout his career, and now he seems to have found his stride. And I asked him what do you think is the most important lesson you've learned throughout all this? And he says it's so important for fighters to lose once in a while, because it could be when you win, it's like, woohoo, like everyone wants a piece of you. Everyone wants to hang out with you and buy you beers and do all that stuff. But then, like, if you lose, like, everyone's gone. It's very lonely. You're on an island sort of by yourself. And a lot of fighters who, especially if they pad their records and stuff, they don't get to experience that, and they don't grow at all. Do you agree with that sentiment? Like, you haven't lost yet, but it's not, it's not like you're padding your record. It's not like you're looking for easy fights. You just want to fight.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where losing is relative. Say it's like, you know what I mean? I have lost, and I lose every day. That's why I win when it counts, because I'm willing to put myself in a position where I'll go in and get smashed, and I don't look for the easy rounds in training. I don't look for, because the same guys that look for easy fights are the guys that look for easy rounds in training. They're the same guys that go into the gym and only look for the guys that they can dominate, and then they go out and they get dominated, and they don't understand why. Because it's easier to dominate somebody when you've been dominated, and then you come out and everything else just seems so much easier, right? But it's the sad reality is that so many people just want to be able to feel cool all the time. And the problem is that it doesn't feel cool when you're the only guy in the gym swinging ropes or pushing the bag or throwing a medicine ball or things like that, right? But that doesn't make them feel cool, so they don't do it. Or they don't feel cool by going out and getting dominated by the guy that's like got their number in the gym, but they'll avoid that guy instead of going headstrong into him.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there. In terms of fights that you've had and that you've competed in, I mean, all of them are finishes, so that's always great. But, people are watching this and seeing or hearing your name for the first time that want to go and watch that sort of showcase fight that you had, the one that, at least to this point in your career, sort of shows who you are as a fighter. What one do you send them to?
Kind of all of them are in a different way, an explanation of who I am in a sense, because like my first fight in California, I went out and got dropped with the first punch of the fight. I had my hands down like this, and I was like, oh yeah, whack, dropped. My friends made fun of me about it, but it's like I popped back up, shot in for a takedown, and I fought back, and I overcame that initial struggle, and I was able to get to the second round, and then I almost armbarred him in the first, but then he was tough. And then ended up getting an anaconda in the second round. My second fight in California, I hit a flying triangle in the first round. So it's like, I'm a flashy guy. In a sense, I do things that you don't expect. I'm always the guy that will say what's on people's mind, but not coming out of their mouth because they shouldn't. That's me, and then kind of all of them, I hit things that people don't understand. I do things that people haven't seen and they weren't ready for. And that's just kind of who I am, hit an arm triangle from the bottom, the South Americana, armbar that I kind of come up with. It's kind of going around now, but like not really come up with because it's jiu-jitsu, but like made my own, I guess.
Would you say that's sort of like a big intangible you're going to bring to this fight? Because Rafael's had 3 professional fights, but would you say the ability you have to make opponents expect the unexpected, is that probably like that one big intangible that he's just not going to be ready for, no matter how hard he trains or who he works with?
It's a mental thing, I think. If you're ready for anything, that's mentally, right? Like it doesn't matter. Essentially, I can probably guarantee he's not able to train with people that are going to do the things that I'm going to do. That's just sucks for him, I guess, but like it is what it is. I do things that people don't understand, like so for him, I hope he works hard. I hope that drives him to the point where he's in the gym every single day so that there's never a doubt, right? Like I don't ever want to be the guy that took an easy fight, that took a can kind of deal, like going out there and beating up a guy that, but I mean, at this point, I'll do whatever. I mean, my first couple of fights, I'll fight anybody, but like my first, those fights in California, the combined record of those guys when I fought them was 17-3. So, I mean, I just want to make it clear that like, I'm trying to get somewhere, and it's, not off the backs. Cause like what you said, right? Those guys that pad their records, then all of a sudden it gets real lonely real quick. And they got to start trying to do all the stuff that they were supposed to be doing 6 fights ago.
Yeah, the fighter mindset is crazy. I talked to a fighter who's fighting this Saturday in New England, and he said he gets depressed after every fight, win or lose, because like the adrenaline, once he gets that adrenaline dump, he's like, now what? Now what do I do? So that's great. It's just a crazy sport. I learn all these different things just talking to the fighters. But how do you see this thing playing out on February 8th? How do you put a stamp on this pro debut? It's finally happening after, a year and a half out of action at this point. Like, how does this all go down? How do you put a stamp on this debut?
I'm just going to go out and hit him in the face a bunch. And then, most of the time it's good. My stand-up is just as good as my ground game. And a lot of people don't understand that. So they think I'm a grappler. You know what I mean? Most of the time I just punch him in the face till they try to take me down. And then that's, oh, you're a wrestler now. It's like, take me to the ground. Cool. Oh no. But if we stand, I'm good with that too, because I love punching guys in the face. So I'm happy wherever the fight goes, to be honest with you. Because there's almost that like necessity to validate my striking in a sense, so that people are like, oh, okay. But at the same time, it doesn't matter to me where we fight. Like like I said, with the best gym in Canada, the best coach in Canada, and I come from the best gym in the States. As far as I'm concerned, with the best jiu-jitsu team, the best all around. Like, you look at the Arena MMA, look them up, man. Like, look at the guys that train there. Look at the guys that I've for a majority of the time that I was there, my wrestling coach was Jesse Taylor, and then he's since moved on. But, Chris Lieben was my MMA coach, Charles Martinez and Vince Salvador. People need to look those guys up, man, because they're like real ones in the game that a lot of people, like, you might not understand, but like what they bring and how like their minds work together. Chuck and Vince Kwon Do, Third Stance, like it's real. So yeah, it's like geometry with the angles.
I know you're not looking past February 8th. You're not looking past the opponent or anything like that, but you just want to get as many fights as possible at this point. You just want to get in there and get the reps in and build that resume up as a professional. But outside of just being active and getting fights, what sort of goals have you set for yourself as a fighter and as a person for 2020?
So, I mean, obviously, like you had just said, get some fights in. I'm moving towards my black belt in judo, so there's definitely growth there that I want to focus on for this year. Building my jiu-jitsu team here, Barrett Submissions Canada. I was lucky enough to be given the honor by Master Barrett to open up an affiliation when I left San Diego and moved to back to Canada. So I'm really focused on building that for him and for everybody here and in the association. and it's just building a stronger team there, and we're competing, and we were gonna focus on a little bit of a traveling team. And then for myself, it's just working on my striking and my wrestling and blending the two together more, so that I just become more of an all-around athlete and fighter, and just shoring up the little parts of my game that I know I need to work on, but would rather eat pizza.
So February 8th, the debut of FLA as they put on their inaugural event, and we'll see the professional debut of the man now known as Tyler Pizza Vankill. Man, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, it'll be the first time I'm back in the East Coast since 2007. Grew up in PEI, so I'm from the 902, and it's really going to be good to go back. I have a lot of support coming out of there. A lot of people getting tickets and making the trip from PEI to Truro, Nova Scotia. So I really appreciate everybody that's doing that. And I'm really going to come and put on a show. I'm really training hard, and we're going to make it happen.
There you go, man. Before I let you go, let the folks know where they can find and follow you on the web, social media, any other shout outs, sponsors, anything like that you want to get off your chest. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So, I'm Squidvicious, BJJ on Instagram is pretty much where I do most of my social media. I'm going to start growing it in the near future, but I will be there mostly for now. Sponsors, I have NTB fight gear. I get a lot of my gis from my gi program, and a lot of my sweaters and hats and a lot of the stuff made through them. It's really good quality gear. I have Patura Enterprises, which is a trucking company here in Kelowna, and GraphVac, which is a septic tank system. They're just really good guys. They've had my back as far as like local sponsors are concerned, and also Affiliate Institute, which does online marketing and things. And so, not necessarily the in the fight game sponsors, but just people that I met locally here that have really had my back, and yeah. So it was it's really good to have those. So yeah,
that's great.
That's kind of it. I'm not loaded up yet, but we'll get there.
That's still a pretty good list, and we appreciate the time, Tyler. All the best to you for the rest of this camp and on February 8th.
Yeah, for sure. And also a huge shout out to Mylan Management, my management, who's really kind of helped like right the ship as far as getting a lot of stuff figured out for me as well. It's really good to have good people in your corner as well, which is, helps you just focus on training and everything. So it was really good to have those guys link up and be able to set this train in motion.
There you go. Appreciate it, Tyler. All the best to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Have a great one.